And, of course, we start with Sunday Night Football, the return of Russell Wilson as a starting quarterback. And we got to hear from Russ after the game on playing well while also being booed pretty early by the home crowd. Take a listen.
You know, I felt like it was playoff baseball. I said out there, it's, in the sense of, I started off 0 for 2, and but felt like, I was going to get hot. I kept telling Coach, hey, I'm going to get hot here. And sure enough, we did. We did a great job. The guys did a tremendous job up front, giving me enough time to make throws. Guys made plays down the field and everything else. And I think it's just the love of the game, I played so many games, and you know that every game's different. Every game has its own story. And every game has different moments in it. And you catch the wave, and once you find it, you don't let go.
Yeah. So Russell Wilson heads into Monday Night Football as the #1 quarterback in fantasy football.
Not a great week.
Because of course he does. I mean, it's Russell Wilson, it's Drake May, it's Marcus Mariota, all in the top 5. Because of course they are. Patrick Mahomes nowhere to be found on that top 10 list. We'll get to that in a second.
How did Brock Purdy end up 8th? I guess he got the 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was, and it was an overall down week. We also have 4 quarterbacks going tonight. At least 3 of which are very fantasy relevant in Baker and Lamar and Kyler.
What do you think when Russell Wilson was saying to Mike Tomlin after the tough start, like, I'm going to get hot? Do you reckon Mike Tomlin's like, all right, well, you haven't been good in 3 years, Russ. Can you show me it now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he believed in him. I mean, he's just like, look, dude, our other option is Justin Fields. Like, you're staying out there. But listen, that's what I say to Matt Casey, producer of Football Night in America. Like, I'm going to get hot. Yeah, I mean, like, whatever. I know I took the Jets last night on national television. I know they completely embarrassed me, but I'm going to get hot, Matt Casey. I promise. Just stick with me here. Look, he looked legitimately. He looked good. Like he did. I don't understand what playoff baseball means in that context. I don't understand that. Like,
what do you mean? He went 0 for 2. He started poorly. He struck out his first 2 at bats, and then he got better and got some hits.
But does it mean like the 2, like a team
didn't land the way he wanted to.
But the thing is, with Russell Wilson, it never lands exactly how you want it to, and that's kind of the beauty and the tragedy of Russ.
Yeah. Let's steal. Let's curtain.
Yeah.
We're still working on shopping it.
Well, yeah, we'll work. Yes.
We'll workshop it.
It's Monday morning. We'll get there.
We'll get there. But listen, second most passing yards by a Pittsburgh quarterback this season. He was 4 for 5 for 138 yards on deep passes. He made George Pickens a thing. He threw a couple of just beautiful deep balls to George Pickens. It's his second best fantasy game since the start of last season. Connor, you recently, I believe, traded Russell Wilson to the Grape Slappers.
I did.
Do you regret this move now?
Oh, no. No, I'm not buying into Russell Wilson at all.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the Jets' third-string corners and just terribly coached defense really led to just such a – now, listen, Russ will be fine, but this is an anomaly to me.
With Russ, I get the stat line, looks great, and he gets the win, and there's a blowout win on Sunday Night Football and everything. Like, there were some miraculous catches. One in particular down the right sideline from George Pickens, which is an absolute joke. Pat Frymuth, miraculous catches. Like, I don't think this is going to be replicated. And to your point, there's maybe the perception that the Jets, with the defense they were last year, they're not even close. I think this is a below-average defense at the moment with all their injuries.
Yeah, no DJ Reed, no Michael Carter, 2 of their 3 great corners. And like we said, they're just not a well-coached unit, that they're terrible up front. Not to take away from Russ, who he was good after an awful first quarter.
Yeah. It was like
fantasy relevance, though, I'm not in.
He's not running at all. We know this wants to be a run-heavy scheme. They're not going to get into a lot of shootouts given how good the defense plays as well. And so I do think he's legitimately on the QB2 radar. I think fantasy-wise he's not going to be as good as Justin Fields. But if you're in, say, the League of Assholes, if you're in a 2-quarterback league, a Superflex league, you're looking for bye-week fill-ins, I do think Russell Wilson is potentially usable. Again, I think you've seen his best fantasy game of the season. He's not going to be a top 5 guy for me on a run-heavy team. But the fact of the matter is that I think he makes the entire offense, to the extent you have investments in George Pickens, in Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, in even Pat Frymuth. I think he elevates all of them just because the passing game is going to be more in rhythm. It's going to be more on schedule, and it's going to be honestly better. Yes, I mean, like early on, like there was that one like bubble screen to Jalen Warren that like was like a knuckleball in the dirt.
Yeah.
And you're like,
he missed a couple early.
But again, like, listen, 33% target share for George Pickens, season highs in fantasy points, average depth of target, and end zone targets. I do think Russell Wilson unlocks George Pickens, and that's to me the biggest takeaway fantasy-wise from his first start last night.
I completely agree. Just the fact that he gives George Pickens' best skill is contested catch scenarios, and Russell Wilson will lob the ball up and give him contested catch opportunities. And we saw Pickens take advantage of that last night, and he looked great doing it. So I'm with you all the way, Matthew, that he elevates Pickens.
The other thing is just to sort of think about here about the Steelers going forward. They play the Giants next week.
Right.
That's not a defense that scares you, certainly not in the secondary. So I think Russell Wilson will be probably in a usable, QB2 next week. Then they're on a bye. Then they're at Washington, home to Baltimore. So, the Commanders' defense is playing well. We'll get to them in a second, obviously. But you look at their upcoming schedule, you're not scared of the Browns or the Ravens in weeks 12 and 13. I will say this. If you're looking to sort of trade high, I don't mind that just because, and maybe you wait till after the Giants game. But look at the fantasy playoffs there. At Eagles, at Ravens, home to the Chiefs on Christmas Day. That is a brutal fantasy playoff schedule. Those are three very good defenses. At least I think the Eagles will get there by week 15, and certainly the Ravens and Chiefs. Those are tough games, especially on the road at Baltimore with potential playoff implications on the line.
Yeah, and for the Steelers, as much as you mentioned, they're not going to be in shootouts because the defense is so good. Obviously, they're favored against the Giants next week, but then they hit their bye, and I think they're probably only going to be favored in 2 games the rest of the season. Like those 2 Cleveland games. Outside of that, as you're doubling up against Baltimore and Cincinnati, Eagles on the road, Chiefs, they're going to be dogs and all these.
Cincinnati doesn't scare me. You think they'll be dogs to Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I agree about that.
Joe Burrow.
It's still Joe Burrow, but that defense is brutal.
The Bengals are 2.5-point favorites against the Eagles next week. The market very much respects the Bengals. I get the defense isn't great, but I think it's going to end up being the 24th best defense as opposed to the catastrophe it's been so far. And it's still Joe Burrow's playing at MVP level.
No, Burrow's great, and Chase and Higgins are healthy. I get that. They're getting production of the run game. Fair enough. Anyway, we can move on. The congratulations to the Steelers. It was nice to see. Season high 21 carries for Najee Harris. Stop me, you've heard this before. The Jets can't stop the run.
Can't tackle, can't stop the run.
They're brutal. But it was nice to see Jaylen Warren get more involved. I said this on Sunday morning show. I said this last week as well. He should not be available in this many leagues. I said it especially on fantasy football pregame. He is too good. He's going to be more and more a part of what now is going to look like a very functional offense.
Yeah, and he's going to catch the ball, most
Yes,
importantly,
correct.
from Russ. So on the Jets side of things, Rodgers, 276-yard touchdown, 2 interceptions. One was brutal, another one the fault of Garrett Wilson, who caught 5 of 9 targets for 61 yards. Quiet night for Davante Adams being reunited with Rodgers. He only caught 3 of his 9 targets for 30 yards. I mean, this just wasn't a real consistent night for a Jets offense that was shut out in the second half of this game.
They were up 15-6, Connor. They lost 37-15.
They were minus 650 or something on the live money line, and then it just all collapsed from there. To me, the biggest takeaway, though, is that Breece Hall looked a lot more like Breece Hall from last year in terms of his explosiveness. He's making guys miss. And even in that good game against Buffalo a week ago, I didn't think that he had that same kind of pace. So I think that's the biggest point of optimism is that he got so used in the receiving game and had that level of speed.
See, that's weird. I mean, listen, the usage is great for Breece Hall. 41 touches, 84% snap rate, 20% target share in the 2 games since Robert Saleh was fired and Nathaniel Hackett was demoted. So you like that as well. He's had at least 20 fantasy points in back-to-back games, but there was that long play where he got caught from behind. I think it was a pass and he got caught around on the 10-yard line. I just felt like
I think last year at the end of running for 57 yards, though, right?
I'm just
the
saying
receiving game. I thought he looked really good as a receiving back,
Yeah.
and it was all in the first half, which is very frustrating.
But it felt like the explosiveness just wasn't there in a way that we've seen previously. I don't know.
He's not making the last guy miss.
Yeah, that's sort of like it is.
Yeah.
That maybe
but
the stamina.
It seems like going from 5 yards to 20. He does seem to have that
that
burst
I
of
agree
explosiveness.
With. That I agree with. 9 targets for Davante Adams, and same for Garrett Wilson. They'll get better, offensively, but I don't think he can use Rodgers really anymore. But especially on the road at New England next week might be tough. But Adams and Wilson.
If they lose that game.
Huh?
If they
Can't lose that game.
They're only 6-point favorites or so.
They're 6-point favorites?
Yeah, I think so. That's what I last saw. I'll double check, but it's not.
Interesting.
That would be quite funny.
Drake May outduels Aaron Rodgers?
It'd never be more over if they lose that game.
Yeah.
You don't think it's over yet?
Well, I mean, in
Jets?
terms of it going nuclear. Right now, it's just kind of feels dead.
They're 7-point favorites at the Patriots. 2-5, they're still plus 210 to make the playoffs. The season is alive. It just feels dead.
At 2-5.
Like an easy schedule. Big Show,
look up the odds of a 2-5 team making the playoffs.
The analytics I saw, which I don't agree with, had them at 47% chance.
Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah.
I obviously do not agree with that at all. But
well, the market says about 30%.
Plus 210 is.
Yeah, my numbers have it a bit lower than that. But yeah, the season is still alive. It won't be if they lose to Drake May next week.
The whole thing gets blown up. Everybody gets fired.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.